Hello, everybody, and welcome to Facebook Live with the Horticulturists. We are the Horticulturists here to answer your gardening questions. No guests today. It's just us here to talk about evergreens. So if you have comments about anything evergreen related, holiday decor related, add them to the comments and we'll get to those today. Or if you have any other gardening questions at all, we'd be happy to chat about them with you today. My name is Candice Hart. I'm the State Master Gardener Specialist here for U of I Extension, and I'm based here in Bloomington in Central Illinois. And my specialty tends to be anything flower related, so annuals, perennials, landscape, cut flower, and also design, floral design. So what we're talking about today in terms of evergreens and making wreaths, this is right up my alley. So glad to talk about it today. But I've also have two other great people here who are going to add some great insights as well. So Kelly, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Kelly Alsop, and I am a horticulture educator based out of Bloomington. My specialty within the team is integrated pest management. But my background was greenhouse production. So I grew my fair share of poinsettias and helped help people decorate for the holidays. I made porch pots and wreaths. And so that's where I come into this. And after a while, you get this evergreen stuff on your hands, and you know how to make a bow like that. And so it was fun to do the holiday stuff in the greenhouse. So that's where I bring my expertise on the subject.
Awesome.
And I taught Candice how to make wreaths.
She taught me everything I know.
Did I teach you to make wreaths?
No, I've learned that already, but I'm sure we made some together.
I am sure we did. I say that because I was Candice's teacher's assistant in floral design when we were in college.
True.
So we had a class on how to make bows and make wreaths, but I know Candice was probably already really dabbling in that before she took the class.
You know it. How about you, Ryan?
My name is Ryan Pinecone. I'm a horticulture educator out of Champaign-Urbana, and my specialty among the hort team is woody plants, trees and shrubs. And so while I've got that sap all over my hands before, I'm an expert at removing it. It's been from pruning shrubs and things, not necessarily wreath making, although I've done a good bit of that since I came to Extension. I can't say that it's been either one of you two ladies that have taught me that stuff, but definitely, I've done it in the past and have an interest in all the evergreen uses for holiday decor. So that's my experience level. I also like vegetable gardening, and native plants are kind of some of my other interests in the horticulture world. But happy to be focused on greeneries and the holidays and all those topics today. So.
Awesome. And Ryan, we forgot to tell you, Kelly and I are going to do a bow competition later. So if you want to join in, feel free.
Well, if you guys need a loser in that competition,
all for fun. So we're going to do a couple of demos today to show you how to use some evergreens for holiday decor. But we wanted to kind of kick it off by just talking a little bit more in general about kind of evergreens. So maybe let's start with so what are some of the evergreens that we might have in our landscape already, or if we don't have any in our own landscape, ones that might be good to add? Do you guys have any good suggestions on that?
Yeah. The hollies. I think holly is a really cool evergreen to have in the landscape. I know that it is you need a male and a female in order to have the red berries, but sometimes your hollies can get a little bit gangly, and you can, prune off some of those tips during the holiday season and get that shrub back in, a nice shape. And that could be a really cool way to have some stuff for the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love mixing holly in because most of the stuff I know what I'm going to use today are mostly kind of thinner needled conifer evergreens, but it's nice to mix in kind of a broader leaf stem like holly. It just gives it a different kind of texture, which I always like.
Yeah, and I think in holiday decor, you use a lot of that Fraser fir, but that's not what really grows here in Illinois. We have more of the white pines and the spruces and some of there are some firs that grow here. Also, boxwoods can be, you can shear your boxwoods. Usually the best time to shear a boxwood is right before you get new growth in the spring, and you shear it the last year's growth off. So you could shear your boxwoods right now and have a lot of material to use. The thing about boxwoods, which I'm sure Candice can tell you, is that once they're cut, they don't do well outside. They're really, to use on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't tend to kind of hold their color and look in that cold weather, I find, than a lot of the other evergreens. They tend to just kind of brown up on you and get kind of a odd shade of green. So yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Which is why you usually see like boxwood wreaths for inside, or use the boxwoods in the centerpieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so from the arborist perspective and harvesting or pruning out some of these branches this time of year, one of the things I think of is which one of these plants has a good array of dormant buds or latent buds that can then be spurred to grow after you prune something off. So what you guys listed, holly, boxwood, those are great ones. Arborvitae does. We talked about white pine. That's pines in particular are plants that don't have a lot of those dormant or lateral buds able to respond from that. So you need to think about that as you're pruning a limb off of maybe a white pine or any other pine species. You may not have something come back in that spot very quickly. We were lucky that a big white pine in our front yard had a limb come down in a windstorm a week ago or so, and so my wife's used that for some holiday decor. So that was lucky, but I think I would be a little selective in how I prune my white pine compared to an arborvitae or a yew shrub. They just come back like gangbusters after pruning. So there's definitely certain plants. If you're looking around your yard, there's probably pretty good information on the internet. You could try and figure that out about your plant, whether it's going to respond to that pruning well or not. So that's a concern from the arborist side of things on some of this.
So for a white pine, would you suggest that they take out the entire limb back to the trunk rather than try to do a tip cutting and try to get it to rejuvenate?
I think you just need to understand that there's behind that point where you make the cut, there's just not going to be a lot of new stuff that comes out behind it. It's all going to be new growth coming forward. So it might be okay it just depends. It all depends. I hate that answer. But it all depends. And it kind of depends on where that limb is and how it balances your plant, that you just have to realize you're not going to have, it's not like a boxwood where that cut is going to spur all kinds of little buds to become active behind it. You're only going to have new growth from the tip going forward. Or if you do prune a white pine off at the trunk, that's it. You're not going to have foliage in that area. There's not going to be another limb that comes out of that location. So you just have to kind of think ahead. And I'm not saying you shouldn't harvest a little bit off your white pines. And we've done that. We have quite a few on our property. We've picked little spots and pruned a little bit out. And you just have to take it from a spot on a white pine where that foliage is not missed, where it's thinning out in a spot, as opposed to, taking off one whole side of the plant and expecting some of that to grow back. It's just really difficult for a pine to come back and fill in that area.
Yeah, that was always my goal. If I was cutting a larger evergreen like a white pine or a spruce or anything kind of bigger in the landscape, I would always try to mostly go for like smaller tips and always have the goal of being able to not tell that you did it overall. So spreading those cuts out and, like you said, looking for areas where there's an abundance of foliage and kind of cleaning it out from there. So definitely kind of spread out those cuts on something like that is something I always tried to do.
And in my research, it was never more than 25% of the plant. And then you want to, skip that plant the next couple of years. So you don't want to do 25% every single year, but, a little bit here, a little bit 3 year, do 25% this year and then wait a couple of years to do 25%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. That's just a kind of a general pruning recommendation you can put across the board of, about 25% to some plants we say can take up to a third every 2 or 3 years is like the recommendation for pruning of shade trees and woody plants. So, I mean, that's falling right along with that. And I guess, the thing you'd hate to ever do is impact the health of that healthy shrub or tree to get a few wreaths out of it. So think about spreading it out and, maybe take a year. I think it's really good advice to take a few years off in between some of these heavier prunings. But, if you just spread it out and you take a little bit, I mean, this is a dispute I've had in the field with other arborists many times. What is 25% of that foliage? That's just a really hard thing to figure.
Yeah.
Even when we've looked at a tree and we've laid out the brush, I've specifically tried to measure this on mature shade trees that we prune, because it really gets to be a question when you've got this giant canopy you're taking limbs out of. So it's hard. It's just an estimate. So I think if you're just being reasonable and you're taking a little bit and just what you need, I think there's a lot of plants that can handle quite a bit of pruning. But think about that 25% number and try and picture it as you're doing that to just have a little stopping point at some point.
That's a good tip.
And you can get sorry.
Go ahead, Kelly.
And you can get super creative and you can look for, dried flowers or berries. So Candice, what you're always doing design. What is some of the, creative things that you've harvested from your landscape to use in holidays?
Well, we always talk about hydrangeas during the growing season, but even this time of year, hydrangea is a huge one for holiday decor, because most of those hydrangeas, especially the pinecone, the Annabelle type, they'll just kind of dry right on the plant. So if you haven't already cut them or pruned anything back, you can cut those and use them to make a wreath, put them in your porch pot. So I use a lot of hydrangea. And then really just any other like dried bits around the garden. So I cut a lot of grass seed heads, yarrow, anything that I've kind of left to let go in the garden, even like coneflower pods, stuff like that. You can just kind of forage around your landscape and add some different textures, whether it's a wreath or a pot or a garland or whatever. There's a lot you can just kind of forage out.
I think a lot of those dried flower heads really do look interesting and cool. They don't have to have the colorful petals.
Yeah,
just that shape is really cool.
Well, and if you're into it, there's always spray paint. I've seen plenty of people do that. Well, they'll tint the flower heads too to get different colors. So that's always an option too.
And so when you're harvesting from your landscape, Candice, what do you do to condition or keep those greens fresh for decorating?
Yeah, so if you're harvesting like cut evergreens from your landscape, really the main thing to keep cut evergreens fresh is cool temperatures. So if I'm gonna, let's say, harvest one day and I'm not gonna use them for a couple of days, now I myself have a cooler I can stick them in, but obviously most people don't have that. So I would just leave them in the garage or even leave them outside so that they have that cold temperature, and that's really going to help them hold up for a longer period of time. What's going to make them dry and brittle is especially bringing them inside where it's hot and warm and there's not a lot of humidity. So honestly, for me, outside, I don't do anything to preserve mine any longer. I put them in pots, I make wreaths, and just that cold temperature outside will have them last for months, really. That's my biggest thing.
So if you want to bring a wreath inside, what would you what would you tell people to do?
You can mist your wreaths for sure to kind of keep some of that moisture in there. I know some people will even take the wreath down and fill the sink with water and even submerge the whole wreath and let it hydrate really well. For me, I just mist it every once in a while when I think about it, and that does, I think, help extend the life a little bit. You can also, they sell anti-transparents. Basically, the idea is that you're sealing in the moisture. I don't do any of those. I tend to just go with straight water, but those are certainly out there on the market too.
Yeah. I've used evergreens that have been treated, and I've used evergreens that haven't been treated, and I haven't noticed a huge difference. I felt uncomfortable bringing treated evergreens inside my home, but it was okay to use it outside, but I didn't want something that was treated inside.
Yeah, and you always have to read the label of whatever product you're using too, because I know there are certainly some flammable hazards with some of those too. So you definitely want to kind of pay attention to where you're putting it and make sure you're reading everything if you are going to use something like that. For sure.
So Ryan, how do you know when a pine cone is ready to pick?
They kind of fall off. They're easily removed from the plant. Sometimes the wind knocks them off. So as far as that depends on when you want to pick it too. Like, do you want it as a closed cone? Do you want it as an open cone? But from a biological standpoint, when is that seed ready? It's coming off the plant by wind usually, when it's ready. So, like my white pine in my front yard, I don't actually ever go pick any cones off of it. I just wait for them to blow down, and collect them. But yes, some pine cones don't open up. On the plant, they stay nice and closed, and maybe that's what you want out of that pine cone. So you might have to actually snip that off to get one of those off that's closed. Just depends on what look you want. But some of those closed pine cones, though, you'll snip off the plant, take inside, and then they open up. That's super cool to actually watch. So be aware of that. Like, some can actually open up then later with heat and stimulation as they come inside.
Yeah, that is always interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people maybe don't realize that the seeds are essentially tucked inside that cone. And then once that cone opens up, that's when their seeds are able to drop out, basically.
Yeah, actually, I have a nice open cone right here. Nice. I don't know if we can actually see any of the seeds. I can see a couple of them in here. They're all the way back at the base of this structure you see right here. Yeah. Oh, it's hard to kind of see, but yeah, those seeds are nestled down in here. Oh, one just fell out. Mm-hmm. So I should have had a better camera for this, but almost looks like a maple samara, when you actually see the seed. So here's the seed, and it has this little almost wing attached to it. So that's the structure that's going to fall out and become a new pine tree out of this. So kind of interesting to look at the actual seeds inside of this whole cone. I think a lot of folks think that these type of, like, this scale here is the seed, which is actually part of the cone, and the seed was behind it.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Let's see, we got a good question come in from Nicole. She asked, any of these mentioned natural holiday decor decorations that are cat or dog friendly? Mm-hmm. So let's say maybe you did bring some inside. What do you guys think? Any concerns on cat or dog safety?
So as far as toxicity if ingested?
I would assume so, yeah.
The best reference I found for that is the University of Illinois Vet Med School has a poisonous plants garden, and there's a wonderful website that goes with it. So when I get these questions from people, that's where I go. Yeah. I guess I also think of it from the standpoint of what is going to be attractive to the kitty cat and make it want to interact with that vegetation you brought inside. So, you probably know your cat pretty well from houseplants, and that it's interacted with in the past. At least that's been my experience with cats that we've had in the past. So it's kind of thinking about that structure of what attracts the kitty and where is the place that you'd want to put it in your home or not put it in your home to have the cat give it attention. So
yeah, you might be better off with a wreath that you can put higher up on a door or some versus a garland or a centerpiece or something that's on the table. And then outside, of course, I wouldn't be too concerned outside. Of course, you would want to keep an eye on your pets outside, but I think it's more of an indoor concern. Yeah. She said her cats go after everything. So yeah, probably not. Probably not a good choice to put somewhere that's accessible to the kids. Or not. They're just going to wreck it if it's somewhere.
We added that. We'll add that to the chat box, that link to the vet med. And
Perfect.
just looking at it, Holly is one of the ones that should not be around cats and dogs.
There you go. Yeah, so we'll get that link for you. There we go, Nicole. So check that out. Excellent question, though. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good list by plant, too. I think that's how it's all listed, is by each plant species. So.
Awesome. Okay, well, feel free to keep adding those questions, whether it's about evergreens and holiday decor or anything else garden related. We're happy to chat through today, but we're about 20 minutes in. Kelly, you want to start to do some demos? You want to maybe talk about kind of porch pots and how that goes?
So I have a nice decorative pot. That is this kind of light green color. I usually try to predict trends. Candice, I'll tell Candice it's a trend. She'll be like, really? I didn't know. But I feel like this light green color is going to be a really big color this year. I feel like black and white is going to be a really big color combination too. But, everybody, probably, 75% of the population sticks to traditional kind of Christmas. So I went ahead and got the green pot. And I got Fraser fir, which I love Fraser fir because that's what smells like Christmas tree. None of the other firs quite have this smell. And so I make the base of my porch pot with the Fraser because the Fraser's usually a little bit cheaper than some of the specialty greens. So the first thing that I do is I do my center branch. And so I'll just pick out 2 branches and I do them back to back. And I'll just pot them in. Now, once I've put that in, that is determining my shape. I'm never going to go outside this shape right here. Then I take a little piece of wire and I put them together. And so this one placement, this first piece is the most important, I think, placement in the whole porch pot. So right there, I've got my shape going. So now I'm just going to start turning and taking my piece. Well, I'm going to add pieces that go here, here, here. So as I turn, I'm just going to go in and just add pieces. And I'm going to look at how it goes. So it's kind of curling that way. I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to turn. I'm going to put another piece up here, up a little top. So you see, I put a piece right here and a piece right here. So now I'm going to just continuously turn. I have some taller pieces and some shorter pieces. The taller pieces are going to go up high. The shorter pieces are going to go shorter. And it doesn't matter if you have cut ends at this point because you're going to go through and you're going to cover those with some of the more specialty greens. So again, I'm starting to turn and add in.
And Kelly, you're just inserting those into soil, right?
Yes, I am. I've used soil. I've used sand in the past, but I've got just peat in here right now. And I've done it in, the old soil in the pot when it was growing, annuals.
That's what I do most seasons, yeah.
That's
and
good
so
recycling.
I'm going to continue to make, you see how the shape is starting to, I'm just going to turn and add, turn and add. Here's another top piece. This probably should go right there. I'm going to add, oh, that's a very pretty piece. I'm going to put that right here.
And we talked about harvesting our own, but as you just mentioned, this is all materials you can get at your local garden center too.
Yes. So I just went to the local garden center and I bought green stems, and these stems are probably most likely produced in Oregon or Washington, where a lot of the Christmas trees come from. There's some Christmas trees come from South Carolina. So I basically made a shape. Now it kind of looks ugly now, but I've made the shape is my whole goal. So now I'm going to start adding in other things. So I have this cedar, and it's really pretty. It's very thick. It adds kind of a, kind of a lacy kind of look. And I'm going to start adding it in. And I'm going to turn, because I'm not going to put it all in the top. I'm not going to put it all on one side. I'm going to keep turning, make sure I get those top pieces in first. See, this has got to cut in, but you're never going to see that.
Yeah, looking on in there.
Again, I'm turning, I'm adding it 2 layers. I'm turning. You know what would be awesome to make this with is, one of those lazy Susans, Candice.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you have one of those?
I do have a couple of them. I love them, yeah.
If it doesn't look right in the right spot, I just trim it off. Or if I feel like I don't need it, I just throw it over my shoulder.
Whatever you got to do.
Whatever it is. This needs a little spot down here. There's a spot right here, but I have some greens that are going to come out. I have some other greens. Let me look. Where should this go? Maybe right here. Okay, now I have the juniper and the pine. So I have juniper and pine. I love the juniper because one stem can really fill a spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I go through it. I look at my chunkiest stems of juniper. I've got some really chunky stems, and I've got a really tall stem. So these 2 chunky stems are going to fill some spots. The tall stem is going to go more towards the top. Let me put it right here. Here's a nice spot right here to fill.
How many varieties would you recommend, Kelly, for one pot?
I think that it has to be 3 or 4 for it to look high end.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when you buy them in the store, it's all just one. It's nice to just go through and add in a little bit more. Some of these shorter pieces, I'm just tucking them into the side.
Yeah, I think so too. I always like it when it has more variety. It just has more texture and more.
Yeah. Then I have the pine. I love the pine because I love the softness. I almost think pine is my favorite because the way it just contrasts with the other foliages. Again, I'm putting like one up here, one down here. So it goes throughout the whole pot. I'm gonna turn it, put another one right here, make sure I'm getting my shape. I have some holes right here that definitely need some pine. I'm gonna add some pine right here. This piece looks out of whack, doesn't it, Candice?
It's a little long, yeah. Give it a haircut.
Needs to go back a little bit. Okay, there you go. There. Okay. I have another piece of Fraser to add some more of that right there. Keep turning, keep turning. I have some little spots right here that could use some pine. Here's my other pine. And so then you can just put your red twig dogwood in the middle, or you can add in some of your pine cones. I usually take a pine cone. If I want to add pine cones, I usually take an empty stem like this, and I use wire like this, and I wrap the wire around the base of the pine cone and attach the pine cone to the stem. So when I actually put it in, it's not like right at the base, it's like up into the foliage.
That's a good tip.
And then sometimes I usually add in a bow because I'm not really the type like you can add all of these other types of baubles and stuff. And this one, these have short stems, so you can use the same tip with the stems that you cut off. But I'm very like a simple type of decorator. I don't like lots of added stuff. So I usually would, at this point, just put a bow at the base to kind of like seal it. And then I usually do the bow too with the stem. Like I'll wrap the bow around the stem, secure it in the bottom, and then it kind of just secures it at the base. And then you can just play with it, and go through. If you see a branch that doesn't look right, just take it out, turn it around.
Yeah, that's what's nice about the soil or whatever medium you have in there. It's really easy to move stuff around and get it to stay where you want it.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, don't you think it looks, I know you can't really see the beauty of it because we don't have the best cameras, but it just looks so much better with the mix of greens. And it's so simple and elegant and stated that you really don't have to add a lot to it. It's just the mix of greens that's really beautiful. And these greens didn't cost me very much at all. Like you could do your porch pots for probably $40. And if you wanted to go harvest, you wouldn't need much more.
Yeah, love that. And then a lot of times what I'll do at this point too is I'll move it into place where I'm going to put it on the porch or wherever. And then I'll go ahead and water it a lot of times at that point. Because one, it adds weight because I've had many a container blow over on a windy winter day. But that also adds some extra moisture to those greens then too. Nice. It looks great.
And it smells amazing in here. And my hands smell amazing. Usually florists will tell you to wear gloves. We don't wear gloves just because we're so immersed in the work. But I know Goo Gone will take this off.
Hand sanitizer. I was using hand sanitizer before it was the cool thing to do because
the alcohol will take it off. Yep. So that's my thing. And I've done the thing where I've spray painted hydrangeas gold and I've spray painted pine gold. I just did that. I don't know. It's not really my style. I just did it to make, that extra pow because some people really want color. Being a plant person, I don't have to have the big pops of color, but the bow is where you get a pop of color. What's your style, Candice?
I usually skip the bow, to be honest, and I'll go for a couple stems of winterberry and get that bright pop of red and add some height to it. And usually that gives me the color I need, and then I'm good. But yeah, a bow is an excellent way to do it too, or even ornaments. A lot of times I'll wire and tuck those into.
One of the things that I do too is this is something that Candice and I learned in floral design is I'll go through and I'll add ribbon loops. And so you just take a little piece of ribbon, you grab your stick and you wrap the wire. Sorry, I tried to be super prepared. Wrap the wire around right here. It's just a little ribbon loop, but then you just add it in right here. So I do a lot of ribbon loops too, because I'm trying to not use a lot of stuff.
Yeah, or I do it sometimes the opposite, or instead of a loop, I'll make basically just like a set of streamers. So instead of making a loop, I'll just cinch it in the middle with that wire and just kind of fold it over and then tuck that in if you want kind of more like streamers coming out.
Yeah, I like that.
Versus loops, yeah.
And that's super cheap way to add color. You don't have to spend, some of these baubles that you buy are really, the stems are quite expensive. You can keep them from year to year, but when you're making a lot, it's pretty expensive. But yeah, it's just simple and fun, and I do it every year.
Great. Okay, let's see. We got a couple of comments. Mary said, love the idea of using the cut stems, simple but genius. Excellent. And Mary said red twig dogwood makes great pops of color and adds height. Yep, love red twig for sure.
Yes.
Any of the dogwoods, any of the willows, I love it.
Yeah.
Add those.
And then those birch logs are super popular.
Yeah. Yep. And then Amy asked, do you recommend spraying porch patch with wilt stop? So we kind of mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. I personally, I used to be the kind of person that would only buy greens that had been sprayed, but if it is so, and then if it's outside, I don't think it makes a difference because it's cool. And then I feel uncomfortable bringing it inside, something that's treated. So would I recommend it? If you want to, you can. Do I think it makes a big difference? I don't know. I think Candice agrees with me that I don't know that it makes that big of a difference.
Especially outside. I think it's really the cold temperatures I think are really going to preserve and moisture too in the air. I think that's going to do enough. Because really, if you're talking about, you're going to make this in November, December, and honestly, I'll leave my porch pots out until March, April, once I dump the potting mix and get ready for spring plantings. And most of the time, they still look great. They might be a little bit browned, but for the most part, they do just fine outside for that length of time. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that looks excellent, Kelly. If you have questions or comments, keep adding them in. We're happy to chat about those today. Ryan, how about you? Have you ever done porch pots at your house?
Yeah, actually, that's what my wife did with that white pine. So
Okay.
She stuck in some different twigs to, have something spindly. We didn't have any red twig dogwood at our property, but that is a favorite. I'm trying to think what else she added. I should have brought a picture of that. But yeah, I think she made 2 of those from that one white pine limb that came down. So it's good use.
Nice. All from your yard?
Yep, all stuff from our yard. Yep. And my sister-in-law did a really interesting little arrangement that she lives close to the Sangamon River bottoms and just kind of wandered a trail by her place and picked up. It was actually fun the other night at her house. We did some plant ID on all the different little flower heads and things that she collected and put together that just looked really cool. So it doesn't have to be, when you get it all together and you have the greenery and some other stuff adding texture, it doesn't have to be all this store-bought stuff. It can be things you can find in nature right around your house or in your yard. And it looks so neat when you arrange it together and kind of think about that as it goes together, make something beautiful.
Yeah, like Kelly said, I think the variety is the key of having several kinds in there. I think that's what really takes it over the top for sure. Cool. Okay. Well, I'm going to show you how to make a wreath as well today, because that's also a common DIY thing that you can make with evergreens. If I can get my screen figured out here, my darn laptop. So a couple of basic supplies you need for a wreath. You need a wreath frame of some kind to make your wreath on. So the size is going to be determined by your frame. This is a pre-made wreath frame that you can get at craft stores. You can make your own with a wire wreath, a hanger. So if you get dry cleaning, you can form that hanger into a circle and use that as a wreath frame. So it doesn't have to be fancy. And then you need wire. So this is also, you can get at the craft stores, paddle wire. That's what's going to hold everything onto your wreath frame. So I'm going to start by just wrapping that wire around a couple of times. Can you see this okay, guys?
We can see it perfect.
Okay, good. So I'm going to wrap that wire around a couple times to attach it. And the thing about a wreath is that I'm not going to cut this wire until I'm all the way to the end. So it's going to be one big continuous piece of wire all the way through. Then you're going to cut to your evergreens. So whatever kind you forage from your landscape or your purchase, you're going to cut those evergreens into smaller lengths. And the length that you cut them is going to dictate how big and poofy and wide your wreath is. So if you want a pretty wild, crazy wreath, then you can leave your pieces a little bit smaller. If you want something a little bit more contained and petite, then cut your pieces a little smaller. Okay. So you're going to prep all your greens ahead of time, get them cut into smaller pieces, and then you're ready to start assembling. So every time you get ready to add greens, essentially what you're doing is you're making a little mini bouquet. So you can take one piece of your fir, one piece of your cedars. So you can do any kind of combination of greens that you have that you're going to be using for your wreath, and you're going to make a little bit bundle. So all those cut ends are kind of grouped together in a little bouquet, basically. And then you're going to take that little bundle and you're going to lay it right where you attach that wire, hold it onto your wreath frame, and then you're going to take that wire and just go around it a couple of times and pull it nice and tight. So you don't want these to go anywhere. So give it a really good tug.
Wouldn't you say that's the secret, Candice, is nice and tight? Nice
and tight. So if you feel like I've even broken the wire sometimes. I've pulled it so tight. You want it nice and tight on there. Okay, so there's your first little bundle. Then you're going to do the same thing again. And it's up to you if you want to make each little bundle the exact same. You can do that. If you want kind of a pretty uniform wreath all the way around, you can make the exact same bundle, or you can just kind of go random and do whatever kind of combination you want to.
What is that last green that you put on there?
The cedar, that one there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had two different kinds of cedar with these fun little tips.
The incense cedar with the yellow.
Yeah, and then just kind of your standard cedar. Then I have a couple different types of fir I'm using. So I've got that second bundle, and it's going to go right on top of that first bundle, but not directly on top. I'm going to move it down a little bit. Basically what you're doing each time is you're covering the cut ends. Okay, so here's the cut ends of the last one. I'm going to take the next one, cover them up, move it down a little bit, and same thing. I'm going to take that paddle wire, go around a couple times, and pull it nice and tight.
So I think the thing that was always hard for me is using the same piece of wire throughout. I always wanted to cut it, but I think it saves a lot of time if you just wrap. And you probably don't care about how much slack there is in between your wraps. It's the actual wrap that's getting the lens on.
Yeah, the tighter the better. And if you did cut it in between, I think over time your wreath is not going to hold up as well, especially if it's on a door that's moving all the time. Everything's just going to be a little bit looser. So that's what's nice of having that continual wire.
And I've had students that when they originally put it together, they didn't wrap it tight enough. So then we had to go back through the whole wreath, doing the whole paddle wire thing again. So it was savable, but
yeah, it's doable. It's just a little bit more work than you necessarily needed. If you got it tight that first time around, then you would have been pretty good.
I feel like the secret is make sure your wire is tight and make sure your bundles are all similar sizes.
Yeah, if you're wanting a nice uniform wreath, then keep the length pretty similar and keep the size of the bundles pretty similar. So this one's going to be a pretty lush, kind of big wreath, which is what I tend to like. But you can definitely cut these even half the size of what I'm using and have a much smaller, more compact wreath.
So it's funny. I'm mildly allergic to like cedar and arborvitae and some of the juniper family. And sitting here watching it, it's like I almost feel a scratchy throat right now. But that is a reason why you may want to wear gloves. Is anybody that knows you have that? Because it irritates my skin a little bit to be. And I know that from pruning so many arborvitae over the years. Arborvitae just has something in it that does not, it irritates my skin. It gets in my airways. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, that's what's nice is that you can use whatever you want. You can use what you have or what you can purchase and customize it to your own taste. So that's it. You're just going to keep doing that over and over and over and over again until you get to the end where you're going to kind of tuck it underneath, cut the wire finally that one time, and then wrap it around a couple times to finish. Lately, the more modern way to do it would be to not go all the way around and do kind of a half wreath where you kind of have an asymmetrical kind of look, that's definitely something that's popular and doable right now too, is to kind of have a more modern take on it. But you can, of course, go all the way around as well. So both of these I didn't finish all the way. I just did kind of more asymmetrical styles. But then the last step is going to be to put that bow kind of where you finish. You want to kind of tuck it in at the end, but a lot of times you still kind of have a bare spot that's like the perfect spot for the bow. So you can either, like this one, I just tied a ribbon on it and just kind of let it dangle. Okay, super simple. Or I think Kelly and I are going to show you how to do kind of a more traditional bow. You want to do that, Kelly?
Yeah.
You can put on. So the key to a good bow is a wired ribbon. Okay, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache and hassle if you get yourself a wired ribbon. Whatever color, whatever size works for you. There's a lot of different ways to make a bow. Kelly, you ready? We're just gonna.
Okay, hold on.
Whip out a bow quick here.
We're gonna have a bow making competition.
We are. How many loops are we going for?
Well, I mean, I always do 3 on each side.
Okay, we can do that.
You have smaller ribbons, so you have an advantage.
Oh, do I?
Okay.
I'll do 4 loops. You do 3.
Oh, okay. So we'll let Ryan count us down.
All right. Is everybody, you have all your stuff ready?
All my stuff is ready.
All right.
Wait, hold on. Let me cut a wire so I'm ready. Okay.
Okay. Bow makers, to your marks. Get set. Go. Oh, it's hard to say who's edging ahead here. I see quite a bit of bow coming together. Oh, wow. Candice has quite a few loops, Kelly. You're going to have to speed it up some.
I knew she was going to win.
She might even be going for extra loops now.
And done.
Oh, well.
4 and 4. I still have to fluff it.
But when is it done? Do you have to actually tie it, fuse it together in the middle?
Almost there. Almost there.
Oh, Kelly's getting close too.
You do have a much more difficult ribbon, Kelly.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. And then you fluff. And then you got yourself a nice little bow.
Okay, well, I think the winner's Candice. She has the first fluff bow out of the two. Kelly, yours is looking good, though, and coming along.
It does look lovely, Kelly. I like that ribbon.
I think like a couple of years ago, chevron was huge.
Mm-hmm. And you can't go wrong with black and white, or not black and white, red and white classic candy cane colors. So then you just tie it on and there you go. But like I said, the key is wired ribbon. That's what's going to let you kind of fluff it up and get those big loops on there. That's definitely the key. That's years of bow making right there.
And I am glad I was not in that
I
competition.
don't even want to count how many bows I've made in my life.
I don't even know where my stick is. I got to go find. Oh, here, I used my stick.
Oh, you used it for your other one.
So then I'm going to tie this bow around my stick.
Let me see, check on our questions, see if anybody's got anything. Nothing yet. So if you have questions, let us know. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of inspiration to either take some evergreens you already have in your landscape or head to the garden center and craft some of your own. The other thing while Kelly's finishing up, the other thing I was going to show too, if we had time, was Garland. If I'm doing Garland outside, then I will just get the pre-made Garland from the garden center and go with that. But if I want something a little bit more lush for inside, like down the middle of a table or fireplace or something like that, what I do a lot of years is start with a base of just really cheap fake Garland. So this is just like a $3 Garland from the craft store. And what I'll do is I'll take that same technique, basically, and instead of doing it on a wreath frame, I'm now doing it on this piece of garland. So I'll take those little bundles of evergreen and group them however I want to in terms of variety. And I'll just lay that on top of the fake garland and then just take that paddle wire again and go around a couple of times like you did with the wreath. And I just find it uses a lot less product, a lot less fresh product when you can use that just kind of fake garland as the base. And then same thing, you just kind of work your way down the line. You can wire in pine cones and ornaments and all of that. So it ends up being a lot more dimensional than just your basic fake evergreen and super low cost.
And probably has some fragrance too.
Yeah, exactly. Then you get that fresh evergreen fragrance too. So like down the middle of a table, I like to do that a lot. And because in the end, you really don't end up seeing much of that fake garland showing through. So yeah, I'm going to show that too. So lots of good stuff you can do with evergreens. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We've got about 5 or so minutes left. So if you have questions about any of this or anything garden related, let us know. Karen said, I didn't know I wanted to make a wreath, but now I do. Heck yeah. Get out there and make that wreath. That's always, this is my absolute favorite time of the year for a lot of reasons, but definitely one for the decor of it. I just love decorating for Christmas, whether it's outside or inside.
How many Christmas trees do you have, Candice?
Oh boy, let's see. Full size trees, I have 4, plus some small ones. Basically, every room needs a tree is my philosophy. Every room.
So if you're buying a present for Candice this Christmas, anything Christmas related would be welcome.
Holiday, hit me up. Absolutely, yeah.
So can I talk about my urban tree conference?
Yeah, let's talk about what's coming up. Yeah.
Okay. So I have put together an urban tree conference. It is targeted towards, professionals in the industry, but gardeners can definitely benefit from this conference. It's 6 days. So it's the 7th, the 8th, the 7th, the 8th, let me look. The 7th, the 8th, and what it is, it's going to address a lot of urban tree types of concerns. So 7th and the 8th from 9 to noon, 14th and the 15th from 9 to noon, and the 21st and the 22nd from 9 to noon. And I have 3 speakers each day. So 2 of the speakers on each day is going to do some basic urban tree care. For instance, Ryan is doing a little tree pruning for me on the first day, and on the last day, he's talking about tree compartmentalization, which is important when you're pruning trees. And then I have kind of my third speaker is kind of more, forest ecology related. So I have, I have a scientist from University of Wisconsin, which happens to be my sister, from talking about mycorrhizae and how trees withstand drought. I have a scientist from Michigan State at Asia Downton, which is talking about stormwater management using trees. And then my keynote is Dr. Gilman from University of Florida, and he is the guru when it comes to tree pruning, urban trees. And so he will be on the last day. So if you are at all interested in urban trees, urban tree health, this would be a great conference to join. It is $10 a day. And the reason why I'm charging is because I'm actually going to use the funds to plant trees. So you're contributing to a good cause. And I'm super excited about it because, the reason I got excited about it, which is kind of crazy because Ryan is the tree person and I'm the insect person. But, Ryan's really helping me out a lot and he's been giving me some advice along the way. But what I'm super excited is that I read this article from USDA about how urban trees really are being planted, but they're dying in few short years. And it's because we're not properly taking care of them. We don't plant the right tree. We don't think about all the conditions that an urban tree has to go through. And so I just kind of, wanted to have a conference that would help people understand how to keep trees that would live longer. And therefore they'll sequester the carbon and we'll be saving the world. Right, Ryan?
Yeah. Well, definitely. It's startling to see there's a number of studies recently in the last decade or so that show like survival rates of urban trees just at the bottom of the bucket, and I think a lot of it is some of the things you mentioned, getting the right tree in the right site, but follow-up care is a big thing. And it's hard as a municipality in particular to plant a lot of trees and have all the right follow-up care. But even as a homeowner or just, myself, I've had problems myself with the follow-up care of just keeping them watered that next year. So definitely it's going to be a great conference. And those dates were in January.
Right.
So we've got about a month to get registered and everything. But I'm super excited to present at it and to hear all the other talks. It should be a really just wonderful lineup.
Yeah, I'm excited too, Kelly. It looks really great. And we've got a link and the dates in the comments. So definitely check that out, everybody.
Yeah,
Sure.
The mix between the forest ecology and the urban tree health care was really what I think is going to set it apart.
Yeah, it's definitely something I haven't seen before. So I'm looking forward to that. Cool. Well, I also want to share too that this is a common time for us for volunteer training as well. Going into the winter season, we tend to host a lot of master gardener trainings, not so much master naturalists, but some master naturalists too. So if you've ever thought about being a master gardener, now's a great time to reach out to your local extension office and see when they're going to be offering training next. When people in the winter, people aren't out gardening. So we try to get people into trainings that time of year. Obviously things look a little bit different this year, but we have a lot of great virtual and online options. So definitely reach out to your local extension office and inquire if you've ever thought about master gardener training. Wanted to mention that too.
Yeah, and there's definitely some master naturalist trainings this spring. I know our unit just couldn't, with fall and all the complications of in-person meetings, we have a spring one that's kind of weird for us. We usually have it in the fall. So definitely check up if that's something you're interested in as well. And you might be surprised what folks are offering this spring. I know we've had around both of those trainings some pretty good statewide discussions of how we adapt and change for some more remote learning and things. So folks will see some differences in the trainings offered locally this year because we're trying to adapt and be very ready for any type of safety precaution or, not being able to meet in person and all those kind of things. So should be an exciting year for that.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see the creative kind of ways we're making it happen. So we appreciate it. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for hopping in today. Our next show is going to be in 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, on December 16th. No, that is 2 weeks exactly. My math is not great. So I hope you'll join us again. We're going to stick with the December kind of holiday theme, and I think we're going to touch on kind of holiday plants. So Christmas cactus, poinsettias, all of that type of stuff, and maybe chat about some gift items too that would be great for plants and gardeners. So I hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks. We really appreciate you guys joining us for these. We have a lot of fun, and I hope you guys get some great information from it as well. So we will see you next time, everybody. Have a great rest of the week.